Hello and welcome to an all new episode of Talking the Witcher. I'm one of your hosts, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I am so happy to be here with you today. I am joined by my wonderful, beautiful, talented co host, Jen.
Hey, uh,
Right?
so I am still in Hawaii. Still have roosters that crow fairly often. So it sort of fits with this episode because there's actually some sort of mentions of roosters. So maybe it'll work out great. I don't
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Let's hope.
know.
All right. So we're going to be talking about episode 3 of The Witcher, and this one is entitled Betray Your Moon. So this is now just for those who it's been a minute since we've done an episode. Um, I haven't read the books nor have played the games, so this stuff is all new to me. Jen has played the games and have read the books and have seen this series, so I'm
Right.
flying blind, and she has the foresight. So let's get into this episode. I'm gonna go straight to you, Jen.
So okay, so I'm actually gonna structure this a little differently this time because I am super curious about how you saw some of this, which is clearly very well outlined in both the book and the games, and especially because well, I don't know if we should say that we're dealing with it yet, but we've got some interesting dynamics happening. So the episode opens with this kid basically who was attacked by something. And we don't really know what it is, but we know that there's something pretty bad happening. And then I'm going to stick with this sort of storyline first, and then we'll move to the Yen storyline, and then we'll move to the Ciri storyline, so that we don't cut it too much back and forth. Because I think it's easier for us to treat the storylines as kind of one congruous thing rather than go back and forth in the episode, which we can talk about later. Okay, so for this, this they're in this they're in a place where something has attacked this boy. I think what is the place? The place is Temeria, and there's some really interesting things that happen in here. We see a Witcher, another Witcher, which we hadn't seen before. That Witcher gets quickly cut down by whatever it is that hurt this kid. So that we know that that's a pretty serious thing if the Witcher couldn't even get it or didn't know what he was dealing with. Um, Geralt is forced, I would say, to go and fight this monster because basically he ran out of money and he could either pay for his company or he can pay for the room that he's been in for the past couple of days and he doesn't have enough for both. So he leaves Roach and as collateral for this tavern keeper, and he goes to this place where he knows that there's a monster to fight. Now, I'm going to ask you, did how did all of that in the beginning make you feel or change your mind or help you to see Geralt differently or the same, or what do you feel like you learned from that?
Um, I mean, I don't know if anything necessarily this different. I mean, I see him as you know, a guy who, yeah, he has a moral code. He also wants to get paid as well. He has his lifestyle, right? Loves to eat. He loves to screw. So he needs to pay for those things. So that's he goes and does his Witcher thing. So, I was surprised that he was willing to leave his horse behind because he's so connected to it.
Mm. Yeah, I think for me anyway, and of course this sort of happens. It happens a little bit differently in the book, but in a similar fashion. One of the things that I am always astonished with Geralt as a character is that as much as he wants to defeat monsters because that's sort of his prime directive, It's like that's built into his DNA is he's a monster hunter. His quote unquote downtime is not spent trying to find monsters. His downtime is spent trying to find people who want him to defeat monsters for pay. And I know that that sounds like it's a like it's, you know, kind of a paper thin line between the two. But for me, and I think that they did it really well in the series, it helps you to understand why why he continues to do what he does, which basically is he has no other choice. And without, you know, saying a whole lot about what might be happening, I think that it kind of explains a lot of his behavioral quirks. If you look at it like he it's not just that he doesn't have anything, it's that he literally spends all of his money in the games. He actually spends a lot of money if you lose on cards because he plays this game called Gwent. And so he spends a lot of money on cards and women, and obviously he needs places to stay. In the very beginning, first episode, we saw Geralt who didn't even have enough money to buy new clothes, right? I mean, three people mentioned it to him. And I think that that sort of gives you the perspective about who Geralt is as a character. So I don't want to you know, take too much time with that. I just wanted to make sure that we set that sort of in motion, because what happens afterwards with the monster that he's about to go fight, it sort of gives you an explanation about why he doesn't just leave when they say, nope, sorry, you go give the money back. You're not going to get through here. Why he's so tenacious, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so he arrives at this castle, and this also to me says a lot about how this world gets governed. It's crazy. There's this king, and what we hear is a whole bunch of sort of rumors, things that, you know, this might be ways that it might be killing people. Geralt does the thing that, you know, launches a million memes with checking out the other Witcher's body to find out what's been missing, and clearly it's just his heart and his liver. And he comes to the conclusion that only a Striga is that picky. I mean, I love that whole sequence, but I sometimes wonder how people who haven't either read books or played the video game feel about how intuitive that kind of was, because it seems like it comes out of nowhere.
Right.
Did you
Uh,
think that?
no, yeah, it was kind of bizarre, but you know, like what I get out of it is, and then I did a little research for myself, is that he's like a master detective,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's like one of his skill sets. You know, much like Batman is a detective, that we don't always see it though in the
Right.
movies. So, and in this episode, probably more so than the other ones, he was doing more so of his detective work.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the things that makes Geralt, I think, so unique in the Witcher world is that he takes a lot of extra time to, perhaps just mentally, but to really understand what he's dealing with before he goes to deal with it. And sometimes it's almost like you wish that Geralt would spend as much time thinking about people as he does monsters, but that's just wishful thinking. So, okay, so we have this whole, you got to tell me what you think about this. We have this whole thing playing out in Temeria about the king and what happened with his sister and what created the Striga in the first place. So, tell me what you thought about that.
Uh, okay, so I'm not good with names, so people out there, please forgive me. We had the one guy who had a crush or was in love with the girl who's the Striga, who was underage, and he was having an affair with the girl, right? And he couldn't be with her, so he put the curse on her to turn her into how you say the word?
Striga.
Estriga. And that's basically where we got had with that. And of course, this was interesting because he smelt it um, on him,
That was
which was pretty
crazy.
funny. Like he, um, how you say his name? Geralt,
Geralt.
Geralt, Geralt.
And it's Ostrit. Ostrit is the one who curses.
Street. Okay,
Right. Yes.
yeah. And so it's funny because he like sniffs it on him, and he's like, "I smell where you were at," It's funny though. Like I felt bad for him. I don't know. Like he wasn't like evil to me. The guy. Even though he did a terrible thing, obviously. But I mean, is it just me? Like, did you have hate for him, or did you feel kind of sorry for him in a way?
It again, in the book, it's actually a little bit different what happens to Ostrit. In the series, with him tying him up to basically be Striga fodder, it was an interesting choice.
Yeah. Oh my God, he couldn't even fight back. He just had to.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I, I, I don't know. See, there's a part of me that thinks that Ostrit kind of deserved it because, first of all, I realized that he didn't mean to curse them or didn't realize that he thought that it was going to work or whatever. But he has kept the secret for so long, and knowing that and still serving King Foltest, his kept it seems really insulting and like, yeah, I mean, I kind of felt a little bit bad for him. I felt bad for him that he really had his choice taken away from him, but he couldn't fight back or anything. But at the same time, I don't know if I really felt very bad for him. Although,
you're like, oh, forget that guy.
yeah, and I mean, the fact that he was still, having fantasies about what was going on recently makes me think, maybe he kind of deserved it. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too forgiving.
I feel like the one who escaped without any kind of recourse at all was King Foltest. And he's the one who actually had the relationship with his sister Ada. And that to me was like more that I feel like, something should have happened to him. But, of course, that's
right.
There's no, in this world, it's interesting to me because in this world, it does seem like Geralt tries, and we've only had 3 episodes and we've already seen Geralt try to run away from what I would call, well, destiny isn't really the best word, but he's tried to run away basically from the things that he says he doesn't believe in, and he's had to confront them already at least 3 times where he says, I don't, if I have to make the choice of 2 evils, I choose not to make a choice. And the very thing that he says he doesn't want to do, he's now had to do 3 times. So I mean, this isn't really holding water for anybody,
Right.
because clearly he is able to make a choice, and oftentimes he makes choices that seem like, are we supposed to know? Well, maybe we don't agree with the morality of them, because sometimes his morality seems oddly based. And maybe part of that is like why he didn't confront Foltest more. Obviously he's not going to take out a king. To me, that's one of the more interesting dynamics. He's a witcher, he can take out monsters, he's clearly super strong, he even has the ability to channel magic at times. Right. And yet he knows his place in this world, and he doesn't go up against the system. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Yes.
So I feel like that's actually a kind of an interesting thing. So we also meet Triss, right? And I got to ask you what you think about Triss. Triss is the sorceress who works for King Foltest.
Wait, let me pull up her picture. We're talking about this lady right here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, she's very interesting because um, she has her own agenda. She lied to everybody
she
about
did.
Witcher, and which she got called out by
Geralt.
Garrett. I know people are gonna kill me because he's the main character and I can't say his name. So go ahead and just shoot me.
We'll get you there.
I
Don't
feel like they
worry.
say his name a whole lot on the show.
No, they don't. They call him Witcher actually more than
Right.
anything.
So
So yeah,
we'll say The Witcher. The Witcher, not The Witcher, the because there's other Witchers, but
that's
he's the
right.
Witcher. But the Witcher G. I know I'm gonna get all kind of hate mail, but so she gets called out, and so you know she I don't trust her at all, and I can see that they're setting her up to be a major character. I'm sure this is not it of her. Am I right about that one?
The series here is differs quite a bit from both the book and from the game, so I don't know.
Mm. Well, I don't know. I feel like from what I get is maybe she'll be more on the show or eventually. I don't trust her. She has her own agendas, but it'll be interesting. I believe that The Witcher feels the same way. Like he doesn't entirely trust her either.
I I think you might be right, and I think that as proof of that, he one of the things that happens is he always seems to see through what her motives are. Actually, Geralt is really good at seeing through what most people's motives are, which is like you said, it's kind of almost like the Witcher version of Sherlock Holmes kind of thing.
Right.
Where he just like intuitively can sense some things that just elude other people. And one of the things that also I think happens with Triss and Geralt is you get a sense that Geralt has been burned by magic before. Like, he doesn't really trust sorcerers. Um, and I think, we've seen now that he probably has good reason for that because of what happened with Stregobor in the first episode. But I think this actually goes a little bit deeper. Now, just as kind of a tiny bit of backstory, there isn't any hint of that here, but in both the books and the games, Geralt actually has a love affair, a relationship with Triss.
Oh,
And it's and in the games it actually causes like a massive amount of conflict when you make different choices. It's crazy. So there's that piece, and I didn't get any hint of that here. I also got, oh my gosh, not to veer off of what we're talking about, but social media was really, really just horribly disparaging to the actress that played Triss,
wow.
comparing her to the ugly version of Triss from the games. Her breasts weren't big enough. She was not built like a game character. Oh my gosh, it was just absolutely horrible.
She's pretty, I think. I mean,
Yeah, I think so
she's
too.
attractive, yeah.
And also, the the idea in this world, which I feel like we're going to get to pretty soon, is these characters are unnaturally long lived, and I do mean unnaturally long lived. Sorceresses can basically retain their beauty for, well, not even beauty, their youthful looks for a really long time, and Witchers age unbelievably slow. So these characters are ancient by our standards. And
Right.
so I realize that we're applying our standards of beauty to a world where that just doesn't exist. But I was frankly appalled at the way that people treated this storyline as if it was some kind of throwaway storyline because Triss wasn't pretty enough. Wow, I was just really very disheartened by that. But
Yeah, that was
okay, let's go to. So Foltest decides in the end. Well, actually, let's not sit. Let's go with what happens first. So Geralt confronts Foltest and says to him, "Look, I already know what's happening here. You gotta let me do this." And Foltest doesn't look like he's gonna let him. And so Geralt comes up with this plan to try to defeat the monster anyway. And what I was saying in the beginning was this is sort of one of those things that's like he's tenacious enough. Remember, he initially Geralt actually decides to turn the money down, and it speaks to this like really weird sense of what he's doing and why he's doing it. When Triss says, "Look, I'll pay you to handle this," of course he accepts, but there's this whole idea in here about Geralt's motives for doing this are definitely different than what we've seen before. And I think that it's sort of maybe just an inflection point to realize that he isn't always acting just for money, that there are legitimate times when he acts for his own sense of preserving or protecting what he thinks is important. And I think in this instance, he understands that the Striga, if he can save her, would only be a very young child. And to me, there's like this whole subtext about how that seems to be important to him as opposed to just the monster hunting by itself. You know what I'm saying? And I was wondering how you saw that.
Yeah, I thought that I mean, he clearly, if he can, he wants to do the right thing. That's evident that
Right.
that's how he gets down. So, um, which is one of you know, his great qualities. You know, is
Definitely.
is that he has a moral compass to him.
And he also offers, once he confronts Foltest at the gates of the abandoned castle, he confronts Foltest, and yeah, at first it looks like maybe they're not going to let him through. But then, Geralt actually gives him a potion, and you see him pausing on it for a long time. Well, I mean, a long time cinema wise. There's a real inflection point right there where it feels like this is a big decision. And we don't know what's in that potion. And I hesitate to like maybe say what that might be because I don't want to give anything away, but it's definitely a big moment. And he gives it to Foltest and says, "Look, if I don't make it out, I'm sorry, if she makes it out and I don't, just consider this a gift for the princess." Um, it seems to me like during that whole scene, it felt like nobody actually expected him to win. Did you feel
Right.
that way too?
Yeah. I don't know why is it that people are constantly doubting his abilities. Like you had that one guy, the guy who owned the tavern, and he's like, I'm not. Everybody's always so quick to say,
I'm not
they're
afraid
not
of you.
afraid of you. it's like do you read the papers?
I,
you should
I
be.
I think it's an overcompensation for actually being very afraid, but also knowing that it's not the Witcher's business to interfere in the affairs of men. That they are not supposed to, which is why, interestingly enough, being the Butcher of Blaviken, having that title attached to him is very insulting to Geralt. He doesn't like it. He hates it because he did that to defeat Renfrey, but other people don't realize that, and they consider. I mean, he killed a whole bunch of people in the village square, that or in the market square. Like that was a big deal, and so mostly Witchers don't get involved in sort of like in a fight. You wouldn't find a Witcher in a regular bar fight. You wouldn't. It really only seems to happen when there's something very confrontational happening. And so I think people are sort of used to being able to say, "You don't scare me," because uh, kind of like walking up to, somebody in the military or something and knowing that they're there for a specific purpose and going, "Hey, I'm not scared of you." Really, actually, yes, you are. But you know what I mean?
So it's all a bunch of hooey.
I think so. I personally think so. I can't imagine you wouldn't be afraid. Because I mean, when he walks up to them, they all walk back.
Right. They don't.
You know, nobody's throwing punches or fisticuffs with him. So,
Yeah. So maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's like they're just saying that they don't that they're not afraid, but they have a lot of reason to be afraid. Yes.
I think there's a lot of healthy fear and respect for witchers, but it's not respect like, oh, I respect what you do. It's respect like, yeah, I know you're not gonna deck me. You've got bigger fish to fry. This isn't your play, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay, um, so the I'm going to lump this into one big thing. Although I got to say, in the book, this is many pages. This fight is many pages, and it's absolutely epic. I love the way that he writes his battle scenes, especially when it's Geralt versus a monster. They're just so insanely well written. In the game, the Striga attack is a little bit different, but in the series, this I think is one of the so far our best indication of the number of skills that Geralt has, right? He can use magic in ways that we hadn't seen before. He has an understanding of how to strike and when to strike.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has quite a lot, I think, of sort of strategy attached to how he's doing this. Also, we understand, I think, on a way that we hadn't understood before, he can take a lot of damage. I'm using video game term, but I mean, like Geralt can actually take a lot of pain, but to take him down, it's definitely a big thing. So, what did you think of that fight? What did you think of the whole Striga fight itself? Oh God, it's so terrifying.
It was very entertaining. It felt like a video game.
It did.
It really had that video game feel to it, and the way that we got to it and all of that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun. I thought and it was scary, the whole run up to it and everything.
That monster, the Striga monster, I feel like they did such a good job with it. I mean, there's both the practical effect, which was just the monster itself in some of those scenes, but then there was the really excellent CGI that went in along with it, which was just astounding.
Oh yeah, it was very creepy.
I was super impressed by it.
I was too. Yeah.
In the book, the chain, because I feel like we didn't see that very well, but in the book, the chain that he swings, I think, is silver, and that's why it's able to contain the Striga for any amount of time. But other than that, they just did an excellent job with that. And so the way that to break the curse with the Striga was, and what I had referenced from the very beginning was, he had to basically battle the Striga until the rooster crows 3 times, and that would signal morning, and that would signal that the curse had been broken. What I found so fascinating about it was that he really misjudged by just a tiny bit, but enough to make it absolutely devastating to him, how long it would take for that curse to truly lift. And she ends up biting him. And man, that scene was that was crazy.
Oh my god, yeah, that was crazy as hell. Yeah.
So Geralt goes down, the Striga goes down, he wakes up and he's with Triss.
Yeah.
And we, learn a little bit through some exposition there. We also learn that that the girl has been sent away to live with some people who we might hear about later. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was kind of a good shout out. That was a good shout out to the books anyway, because it's a place that that we learn about later. I guess I'll just say that. So okay, so that was the big Geralt thing, right? The big Geralt thing was the Striga, learning about full test, getting some information about how magic kind of works on a different level with Geralt, knowing what the battles are like, and then sort of understanding that Geralt is, quite the quote unquote Sherlock Holmes inside of this world. He's actually a really good detective. So that was actually really good. I loved everything from start to finish with that. Absolutely. And I really loved the sets in this. The sets were just so well done. I mean, I can't remember a time when I've seen something that was so visually fascinating as that scene, as the fight scene with the Striga. I just absolutely loved it. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about Yennefer, because Yennefer's transformation is kind of the next big thing that happens in this episode. And there's a lot of political machinations going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that sort of we understand about the organization of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers and how things sort of match with Tisea, how the Brotherhood of Sorcerers and just sort of what everything kind of looks like all together. It's an interesting way to kind of mash everything together, but I think that they did a pretty good job with that. So how I'm going to ask you first of all, without doing the Yennefer transformation scene first, because that sort of happens at the end. How did you feel about kind of knowing what was sort of happening behind the scenes with how the sorceresses were going to be assigned to all these kingdoms?
Yeah. Once again, you get that kind of intrigue, the political as well as supernatural as well. I mean, I thought it was very interesting. And you felt for her, Yennefer, uh, because in a lot of ways she fits, that whole environment, but in other ways she does not. So, and she's always feels like she's not a part of it. You know what
Right.
I mean? So, and you feel for her because that's all she wants to do, right? Is to belong. So I thought that part of it was very interesting, and the fact that she would go to great lengths to be a part of it, by basically getting rid of her fertility, in order to become beautiful. I thought that was something else.
I so this sort of really underscores Yennefer's I uh, internal struggle at all times to feel like she is displaced and unwanted, that she can never be loved. That is a um, that's a big one because it really kind of guides every decision that she makes from that point forward. Well, even up to that point. The reason that she wants to be in Aedirn is because that's where the province that she was born in is. And it it is like she wants to be there to prove to everybody that, you see, I can be more than what you thought I ever could be. And there's so much pride that goes along with that it feels like it is just destined to fail. I mean, there was no way when I was watching it, I felt like, wow, this is such a huge mistake, because here she outmaneuvered Fringilla from going to the north, which we will talk about soon, and what that the fact that she didn't go to Nilfgaard set up a cascade of consequences for later. But the interesting thing to me is that Yennefer had to show Tisea that she could outmaneuver her. And I feel like that was the whole point. Like the whole point was for Yen to say, I got this. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. From this point forward, I'm going to be in charge of my own destiny.
Right.
Did you feel that too?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, 100%. That's what I felt.
Just the fact that she was willing to undergo the transformation without any
The painful transformation as well.
without going to sleep was astounding. I mean, I can't even imagine what kind of pain that would be.
It looked painful. There was a painful scene.
For her to say that, I think she says it, that there can't be that transforming, that something about pain in there. I can't remember what it is. Is sort of it's telling. It's just telling that she's just willing to do whatever it takes at any time to do what she wants to do. And this is, I feel like this is very character important. It's very character important. She even tells Estrid that she can't be with him at all because she doesn't think it's her destiny. She thinks it's slow suicide. And I don't know. I mean, to me, that's like, I feel like she is behaving just like Geralt by saying, screw destiny. I don't care what destiny has in mind for me. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. And that is almost always the invitation in this world for destiny to come up and basically mug the hell out of you. So, yeah, there's that. Okay. So, and we also know that, yeah, at this point now, she cannot have children. That seemed like a pretty big sacrifice to give. And we also know that, this is how magic works, right? Magic works by making sacrifice. At all times, any magic there's got to be a counterbalance. And that counterbalance for the transformation had to be really big. And that basically is it. Tisea says something, I think, in the books about that the trade-off for becoming a sorceress is that it's not a choice. You don't get to make this choice. The choice is you don't get to create new life. And she's got a lot of very introspective reasons for it. I don't remember if it's Yennefer or if it's Tisea that gives us that exposition, but it came from Tisea. Tisea either told Yennefer or she says it to her directly in the book. I can't remember which. But that's actually kind of interesting. Okay, so let's I mean, before we wrap that storyline up, obviously Yennefer goes to Aiden, and she's gonna get what she wants there, and Fringilla goes to Nilfgaard. So stick a pin in that. That's notable, consequential. Ciri is out there in the forest. And the interesting thing that happens in this episode with Cirilla is she comes across, or she has been with this person that she calls Rat Boy, and she is basically getting ready to walk. She hears voices. She's getting ready to walk into this forest. I gotta say, I didn't, and I still really don't think that we even needed that. I mean, this is interesting, and I feel like they really wanted to make Ciri's story about wandering and coming into contact with other groups that could be around, which, maybe there'll be potential allies later, maybe there'll be potential foes later, who knows. But it feels, when characters do too much wandering, it starts feeling aimless story-wise too. Right. And that's kind of what I felt like about this. And it's weird because I didn't feel like this in the book, but I really did feel like this in the series. What did you think?
No, I feel you. I get it that, we're on a journey to get to somewhere, but, it's like you want to be entertained by that journey. So you have to walk that tightrope of how are you telling this story? Um, the whole thing is the payoff, right? The payoff, is it going to pay off? So,
Right.
um, but you still got to enjoy each episode one by one. So, um, it's definitely the way it ended made you wondering, what's going to happen next. So that's a good thing.
I think part of the reason that I never liked the Ciri wandering piece is because is because I don't feel like in just this one place, right? I mean, people can argue about whether they see things in conjunction, and especially if you've read the series, you know where the series story is kind of going. But in the in the actual Netflix series, it feels a little to me like they weren't sure how to present the fact that Ciri really had to search for Geralt, and that quest, took on all of its own sort of intrigue, and like they need to flesh her out as a person. But it feels, at this point, it really feels like they just haven't done a really good job of making the character as super interesting as I think they could have. Because I have to say that I didn't feel that way when we saw Ciri use, her crazy power to open up a chasm in the earth. I mean, then it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? That's crazy. Wow. But the roaming scenes feel, yeah, very aimless. And I don't know, maybe that was the point, but it just, from a viewer's perspective, felt very aimless. It just didn't feel coordinated.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It never works. Well, it rarely works, I should say, in cinema or television.
Yeah, I feel like they needed to sort of give her something a little bit more concrete, like even mentioning, I absolutely positively know that I need to find Geralt. I gotta find him. I gotta find him. I gotta find him. Even asking people, do you know Geralt? Have you ever heard of this person? I mean, there were so many little things that they could have done to sort of make us feel like she was actually on a mission, instead of just, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing or where I'm going or what's happening.
Should have
So
just went to social media.
yeah, yeah. Hey, that actually could be pretty interesting. No, actually, no, no. I'm not even going to go there. So, okay, so that I also want to ask you, what did you think overall of this episode? Were you entertained by it?
I would say it was the best episode that I've seen so far. So that was pretty good. I mean, but then again, the last one was it's getting better, not worse. So that helps, you know. So
How do you do you think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you think that, just based on what you know so far, do you feel like they are kind of ramping up the the politics behind what's happening? Because I feel like that's what was the point of this episode, was to show us that there are very real politics happening here, and nothing is happening in a vacuum.
yeah, yeah, no, I definitely get that from it. That oh, this is it's all about world building at this point. I feel like maybe most of this season is going to be a lot of world building. So which is great, you definitely need that in a series. So um, I, I felt like, okay, this one was really good. It served several masters, and
Definitely.
it did it well.
Now, I want you to think about something. Excuse me, because I think this is also important. Fringilla goes to Nilfgaard. Do you remember who uh, Queen Calanthe was fighting in the very beginning, when uh, when the attack came?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, because you told me to to remember that. Uh, because remember, it was like the only she had lied about how many battles she had won or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, she had referenced, actually, something that was happening, but Fringilla went to Nilfgaard.
Right.
And now we understand that it's also Nilfgaard that attacked. Well, we knew that it was Nilfgaard that attacked the kingdom where Calanthe was and where Ciri escaped from. So Nilfgaard clearly plays a very important role in helping us to understand the whole story together. And this, to me, this feels very. It was interesting because when I first watched the series, I think it was this episode that I realized what was going on, and I hadn't put everything together. Well, I think I started putting things together in episode 2, but I hadn't formulated my whole understanding of what was happening until this episode. But we'll wait until next episode and see if you catch what clearly is happening, and then I'll explain it. We'll give a little bit of narrative exposition there.
Well,
Sound good?
no, it sounds perfect.
All right.
All right. So I guess this concludes episode 3, Betray Your Moon. So we'll go to you, Jen. How can we get you on social media and all that goodness?
People can find me on Twitter at following bliss1, and you can also find me on the web at my websites, moviesmakethemeal.com, and my story deconstruction site at whitewolfstudios.com.
All right, all right, all right. You can get me at Kinte F on Twitter, Kinte Ferguson on Instagram, and of course the website is indyradio.org, indyradio.org, and we will be back with an all new episode soon.
Excited.
All right, peace.